I'll speak in English and Malay. Selamat datang semua, selamat datang ke Borneo Forum November 22. Selamat datang, terima kasih kerana sudi datang dan menyertai Borneo Forum November 22. Yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for attending this forum. We do have a higher registration on Eventbrite, but as usual, there's always the 80-20 rule, I suppose, that kicks in. And with all the busyness of post-election, post new prime minister, it's so exciting. I am Ken Dunstan Kundaya, originally from Papar, Sabah, Kadazan Dusun. I'm based in London at the moment, been here for a while, and I've just came back from a 3-month spent in Malaysia. I was in Indonesia, I was in Balikpapan, looking at all the Nusantara project. I was in Manila, Davao City, and then back Kuala Lumpur and Kota Kinabalu. So it was traveling all around, not around, but Tarakan, Nunukan, Tawau, and back in London now. Now, I started Borneo Forum back in 2015 or thereabout, 16. It's a small group of people just meet up in London. And then, of course, when the pandemic happened, I then regrouped and invited a few more people, and we launched it virtually. And now we are still on. We did have a short break this year with the business of traveling and all that. And we kick off again today. So today, exciting. Borneo Forum and Borneo organizations are two connected organizations. Borneo Forum used to be the media branch of Borneo organization. Sounds a big name. What are they? It is an incorporated company, and it is one is for profit and one is for non-profit. Borneo Forum is not for profit. Now, what is the objectives of Borneo Forum organizations? The Borneo Forum really is to connect people all over Borneo, especially, and also the region of Southeast Asia, but particularly for Borneans who are, in a way, separated by history. We have the Kalimantan, Sarawak, Brunei, Kota Kinabalu, and Labuan. And because of that, we don't really have a platform that connects all the Bornesian or Borneans, as we say. So this is our intention. Why do we want to do that? There's a lot of things going on in Borneo now, especially the Nusantara. That's the most exciting development. We believe that Nusantara, the new capital city of Indonesia, is going to be focal point for Borneo. Not only that, it's also the capital of Indonesia. And not only that, it's going to be the capital of the biggest Islamic country in the world, and also the biggest country in Southeast Asia and ASEAN. And therefore, that's quite significant, and a lot of our interests are focused in there. I've just been there. I was received really, really well there. I was received by one of the local sultan's representative, and went to the Titik Nol and visited all the places and the local leaders as well. That was very good. Now, today it's a very, very important seminar or forum, because we have the update for the Post-COP27 Egypt, such an important event, and a lot of significant kind of breakthrough compared to the previous one in Glasgow, UK, COP27, and mainly in the loss and damage agreement, so to speak, and that's very significant for the country in the south. But I won't touch on that too much. We have our Vice President Richard here of Borneo Forum, and we also have Boyd German, also Vice President of Borneo Forum, and Raymond also is the coordinator and co-host today. So I would like to invite Boyd German to introduce yourself and introduce all the panels and the content of the forum today. Over to you, Boyd.
Right. Thank you, Ken. Thank you all. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because you come from different parts of the world. Looking at this list, you are from Japan, Japan, Canada, USA, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. So there's quite a variety of you. And many of you I know quite well, obviously. But for those that don't know me, my name is Boyd Joman. I work independently now, but I used to work with GCOM, for which ASI is also involved. I'm also a work previously at IRDA, Iskandar Regional Development Authority, for which I asked Chu to join because she's the expert now from there. She was previously my team when I was at IRDA, so it's a good feeling, and she's going to share quite a wonderful number of latest work that has been done. One of the major things that I want to this event to happen is because we're talking about climate change, and not only that, it's a climate emergency. And from here on, we need to do something over the next 8 years to 2030. If we don't, our planet is going to be quite different by the time we get to 2030. So we have a common major issue that we need to discuss. And more importantly, how we can work together and make things happen. That's why the caption that I put in that forum banner is what on earth happened at COP27. So we want to share with you what happened. For those who attended, obviously, I have 3 wonderful speakers who attended COP. And I think they're just back about a week ago. That is Asi Budiati, who's the team leader for the Global Covenant of Mayors Asia project, which covers this area. And of course, our first speaker, Eddie, who is the director of the Johor United Nations Global Compact, a very important piece of work. And thank you to my bro for attending COP, and as well as coming on this one, because I can rely on him. Every time this happens, I ask him, he always comes forward and join us. But I'm very happy because you guys, the 4 speakers that I have today, are also very, very important. But going back to what I was doing before, I was involved very much on the environment and on climate actions. When I was working in Iskandar, Malaysia, the focus is very much on transforming an economic development region to be prosperous and to be sustainable at the same time. And I'm proud of it, although I've left it, but I'm very proud, and I'm sure Chu is as well, and indirectly by Zura, because she's worked on the project that I was doing. This is, if you like, the forerunner. Iskandar, Malaysia is the forerunner of climate actions in Malaysia. I want to claim that because it's true, and we are way ahead even from the government's point of view. We were leading the federal government and the country until such time that they can catch up with us. Now they are, I think, more or less ready, which is great. So wonderful things are happening. And as I've read it, I think there's a proposed cabinet for the new government, which emphasizes on climate actions and on relating to environment very, very strongly. So I'm very, very happy. And this is very timely as well, because although we're not going to talk about the politics side of it, but nevertheless, COP is about politics. And it's about how nations get together, transform their areas, more importantly, but at the same time, together makes a very important battle call, if you like, for the whole planet. Because it is what we're talking about, the whole planet. There's no planet B. We need to focus on this one, make it work. And the policies, they get together, the people involved in this forum, they are from very diverse but very important policy background, business background, expertise in their own fields, because I can see there are architects, entrepreneurs, planners, as well as individuals who are very passionate about the environment. So I'm very, very happy that you guys are here, and I hope that we have a very good debate on what is going on and how we're going to do this properly. Now, I think that's about it. I'm going to talk too much because we know each other quite well. I just want to say that I'm very much an honor for me to bring you all here and for you to attend. And thank you so much for being here. But hopefully, let's do this. It's informal, by the way. So we can have a discussion as we go through. But The 4 speakers will have at least 15 to 20 minutes to present. And I promise you, there's some very, very great new ideas there. And that's why we want to focus it. I just want to touch, Ken, on a little bit about Borneo, because here is a very important piece of organization that we have formed through Ken, because now we are focusing on not everywhere, but the island of Borneo, the 3rd largest island in the world. And on Borneo, you have at least 3 countries involved. So we want to make a big thing. And the fact that Nusantara, the new Indonesian capital, is going to be here in Borneo, rather, that's going to make a big difference to the area, not only in terms of prosperity, but how do we look after Borneo? Because it's one of the last pieces of the earth that is pristine, mostly untouched, if you like. And we want to keep it that way. But of course, we need to do it in a certain way that we can really focus on ensuring that the people, especially the indigenous population, if you like, the makeup of the different people in this part of the world, how we prosper together, and how we, more importantly, protect the environment. So we want to make sure that all these things happen. That's why the Borneo Forum is done for that purpose. How do we ensure that we look after just one piece of land on the whole planet and make it really good and important for the future? So Ken and Cousin Richard, because it's my cousin, can you give me a co-host, please?
You are co-host now, Rick.
Right, great.
You're co-host.
I want to show a slide here, just very quickly. Now, mainly because I think this is important to tell you guys about it, because it's such a topic that is going to make a big difference on what's going on. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
This is very, very rough, because it's actually a lot more than this. And for you guys who know this very well about the COP, which is Conference of Parties from the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, let me know if I get this wrong. But this is very much, if you like, everything you wanted to know in a nutshell. And just to give you an idea of what it is, because it relates to the topic that we are doing. And very importantly, because we don't want it to be such that we keep talking about this and you guys are thinking, what the heck is COP? And why should I get involved in this? And what is the whole point of this? So this is very much an idea of it. So COP is the Conference of Parties. It started way back in Berlin in 1995. If you go even further back, 1992, during the time of the Rio Summit in Brazil. So these are the things that started it. And from now, we're talking about COP28, so 28 years hence, if you like. A lot of things have happened, and we wanted to do this one after COP27 because a lot of good things happened at that COP. And I think somebody was also saying, like, it's the second best COP in terms of outcome, not in terms of anything else, but the outcome of that, very, very critical. And I think Eddie is going to talk about the damage and loss and damage issue that came out of that, because that's an important thing relating to that. So I'm not going to spoil that, bro. So I'm just going to say it. The other thing about COP is it's about negotiations between all the 200 countries. Exhibitions are really superb. And of course, side events, I think there are hundreds of, even several hundreds of side events that you can attend within a two week or 10 days of the COP event, which is always in November of each year. I've attended quite a number of these, and they're all very exciting. If you like, there's a lot of learned, very clever people in there. If you think about it, it's one of the places in the world where you can learn a lot about what is going on. To me, it's possibly even much better than football, by the way. So, but in a different format, obviously. But these are the things we got to look at, how we deal with the negotiations, because that's important for the whole planet that is involved. And we cannot, set it aside. Exhibitions are excellent because it tells you a lot about what is going on in different parts of the world. And you get to meet so many different people in that event. I can't remember the number of people I've met and attended, but we're still keeping in touch, which is great. And of course, side events, I think our 3 speakers who attended had many side events. So it tells you a lot about that. The other thing about this is the COP is so important relating to limiting our Earth's temperature increase by 1.5 degrees, which started way back in 2015. However, it's gone on and on and on, but there are still a lot of countries who don't really follow this. They talk about it, and to be honest, they talk about it, but they don't do anything about it, or very little. And we end up still having temperature increase for our planet. So that is a big issue, not only in certain parts of the world, but actually in many parts of the world. So we know, for example, the planet is sinking because of sea level rise. And we all, this is kind of blasé thing now, but it's very true that this is actually happening. And if we don't do anything about it, it's very little or very slow, we're not going to be able to save our planet. So doom and gloom, very, very important to say that, because it's not going to be just my backyard, but your backyard is going to be affected one day. I think many of you already felt that through the flooding that is more frequent than normally. It's no longer 1 in 50, 1 in 10, but every day, 4 times even, a little rain, heavy downpour, flooding. So these are the things that's happening. The other thing about COP is it's attended by an average of about 30,000 to 40,000 people. And these are all representatives of the countries, the business leaders, the officers of each organization. It's about the religious people that attend. The Pope attended, for example, presidents attend, and media, of course, because we need to make sure that the whole world needs to know what is going on at COP. But there is a little matter, because it would be wonderful if everyone can attend, but only certain people can attend, because it's not really open to the public. But if you are a member of the government delegation, I think Malaysia had a really good one this time, you can be what's called party overflow. So you are the party means the country. So you're part of the government's delegates attending the event, and you become part of that and talking about Malaysia. So you become, I'm Malaysian, I represent the country, and I'm a party overflow. In some ways, universities, for example, or certain individuals who are part of an organization can also attend, and you become what's called observer status. I attended together with UTM several times, so I come under observer status. Now, the difference is if you're a party overflow, you can probably attend most of the zones, they call it, blue zone and green zone, or even negotiation table. If you are an observer, you can only have side events, attend some areas that are open to the public, and you can have an exhibition. So there are variation of that. But today, you can attend it online. You don't have to be there, which is a lot cheaper, which I did. So I attended quite a number of side events online, which is good. But of course, depending on the time frame, over there it's still, I think, 6 hours difference. So it's morning there and it's already evening here, that kind of thing. But nevertheless, very important. If you are really interested in this, there's a lot happening in there. The topics, I won't go too much, but you can see about nature, energy, zero carbon economy, nature-based solutions, and more importantly, and I hope that Eddie can talk more about that, relating to funding. And of course, RC will do the same. So there's lots of things happening at COP. And if you're interested in that, we're happy to be a go-between, if you like, or get advice from us. I've attended 6 or 7 COP, all different, all very exciting. But of course, you learn from that and you bring back and you make things better for your own areas or country. So those are the focus of this major thing. So I think I've said enough. Next year's COP is 28, which is Chu is saying is going to be Dubai. So that's not too bad. It's in between. So get prepared. If you want to be part of the delegation, I think you can go under observer status, but more importantly, as a party overflow. So you go on behalf of the country. So, you know, you got 1 year to plan ahead. So by all means, do so and attend if you can. It's a good place to learn and to know what is going on. So I'll stop there for now. And Ken, any comments? I will stop the sharing here.
Thank you very much, Boyd. That's a very nice background, and I won't drag it too long. I will also invite Raymond, our coordinator today, co-host, to say a few words.
Okay. So hi, my name is Raymond, and I'm the co-moderator for today. Firstly, thank you, Boyd, for inviting me to participate in this very important conversation. Now, the conversation today is very important and timely because it's for our future generation, also our Mother Earth. We got only one world to live in, and I'm currently residing and practicing in Labuan. I'm a business consultant here, and living on an island, it's even more relevant to me about this topic today because as we are speaking, there are islands under the sea in the Pacific Ocean, and it's caused by climate change. And I ask myself, what if this thing happened to my beloved island? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So today's conversation is very important because we're going to hear the panelists from giving all what they have done and sharing the initiative they've done. And I think the most important is to ask ourselves one question is that, what can I take away from today's session and do something? Because I believe we all have the power to do something, no matter how small we are. I can take a stone and throw in the river, a sea river, and we create ripples. So if collectively everyone throws stones and create ripples, I'm sure change will happen. And that is what my thought for today. And I hand over to Boyd. Boyd, should I hand over to you, Boyd? Boyd, can you unmute yourself?
Unmute yourself, Boyd. Yeah.
All right, I thought before we go to the first speaker, thank you, Raymond. Let's have a quick photo session. Just a quick photo before that. Perhaps Ken and Cousin can take a quick picture. And if you can, put on your cameras, please, or your video. And let's have a quick photo. Right, guys, give us your best smile, okay? Right, Cousin, when you're ready, let me know. Okay. Ready? Ken, you're mute.
Okay. Yes, I've taken. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. If you can, please mute, but you can remain on camera. Okay, Raymond.
Okay.
First speaker.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Boyd. So it's my pleasure to introduce you the first presenter for today. It is Eddie Suresh. Now, he wears many hats, all in the cause of pursuing global sustainability. So whether he is a journalist or an editor or a social entrepreneur, he's very passionate in this field. So currently he's the board of director and the Johor State director for the UN Global Compact Network, Malaysia and Brunei. So he has strings of accomplishment and credential to back his expertise in this field. So without further ado, I would like to invite Eddie Suresh for his presentation on the key takeaway from the COP27. So the floor is yours, Eddie.
Thank you, Raymond, for the kind words of introduction as well. And Boyd, of course, as always, bro, happy to support and happy to be part of the conversation and happy to be part of the movement. Ken, as usual, I mean, I love how the Murphy's Law always kicks in, and and you are always the person who is trying to fix it. And thank you so much for putting this lovely forum together. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Boyd. So welcome everyone to the Borneo Forum, and this is my second outing at this particular forum. I was with Boyd and Ken and everyone else last year, and this year we are here again. But this year it's a little bit more different since we've been to COP, and I mean, unlike Boyd, who is a regular at COP, I'm sure everyone recognizes him there. It's my first excursion to COP, and I was also UNGC Malaysia was also hosting a panel, ASEAN panel session at UNFCCC Pavilion. So that was a interesting experience for us, and also to be part of what the Malaysian Pavilion was. It was an eye-opening experience, and very interesting. So yeah, before we get to the details, let me welcome you guys to the United Nations Global Compact, or UNGC. I'm Eddie from the Johor office of the UN Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei, or UNGC MYB, which is the official local network to the UNGC, right? Now, the United Nations Global Compact is a UN pact to encourage businesses worldwide to adopt sustainable policies and practices. It was established in the year 2000 by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. And the mandate that was given to UNGC was to assist businesses to achieve their sustainability ambitions. So unlike our more famous siblings, WHO, which needs no introduction, they look at health. UNICEF looks at children, and the UNGC's mandate is to work with companies on their sustainability ambitions. Our mandate is quite interesting. Now, the UN Global Compact currently has over 16,000 participating companies globally, with local representation in 69 networks. So we are in 69 offices all over the world. In Malaysia, we currently have slightly above 180 participating companies by the likes of Bursa Malaysia, Sarawak Energy, Duo Pharma, Plus Malaysia, Post Malaysia, Maybank, Axiata, HSBC, Amana, and so on. We also work with a lot of SMEs, because I strongly believe that this conversation must be kept to all tiers of industry, and it doesn't matter if you are large or small, but all organizations must be part of the sustainability movement, or even the ESG movement, if I may say that, right? Now, companies that join us must subscribe to our principles and our goals that we together want to achieve, and organizations that join us must commit to embed the UNGC 10 principles, which the anti-corruption, human rights, labor, and environment into their business operations and their strategy. So this is the 10 principles of the UNGC, and of course, collectively, we are always working towards accomplishing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, which act as a blueprint to achieve a sustainable future and planet for everyone. Now, it's more important, as Boyd mentioned. He mentioned 8 years, but I'm just mentioning it as 7 years now, as we lead up to the 2030 deadline, so to say. It is themed as the decade of action, so whereby we will need action from all tiers. It doesn't matter if it's a government, it doesn't matter if it's from NGOs, but most importantly, it must come from the private sector as well. As I mean, the elephant in the room is very obvious, as they are the biggest emitters, right? So without getting commitment from companies, it becomes very difficult. So this is our job. So we shoulder this burden, if I may say, to get companies to embark on a sustainable journey, and to look at their ESG, and to look at everything else that is important to accomplish the SDGs, right? So quick snapshot of some of the things that we do. We sit in the National SDG Council. We work with agencies such as SME Corp and Bursa Malaysia and many other agencies to develop tools for private sector utilization free of charge, right? So that's our job. Our and to develop what is needed for the local landscape. And keeping that in mind, we develop a lot of local tools, guidebooks and handbooks in a localized texture. Why I emphasize localized is because if we Google, we always get a lot of global benchmarks, but it's not easy to get a localized flavor to things. And we also provide access to our global tools to private sector actors, right? So we host a lot of flagship events such as our Go ESG, which actually ended on Thursday. And our SME SDG Festival, which we had in Johor from the 8th till the 11th of November. We also had our UNGC Global Program, which is a SDG Investor Forum, which was held on Wednesday. So I'm pretty much, I'm drained out and drove down to Johor from KL this morning. And, I mean, I don't want to miss the forum at all costs. So I left early and I'm here as promised, Boyd. And we also a lot of industry, cross-industry roundtable. I mean, we want to be industry agnostic, right? And we do a lot of roundtable sessions to raise the awareness among private sector actors and let them know that, they are not alone in the journey towards accomplishing sustainability. Yeah? So yeah, that's a quick snapshot of who we are and what we do, right? So now coming back to the most pertinent question and discussion of the day, what are the key takeaways from COP27? So I'm going to share a little bit of what I saw, heard, and give you guys a little bit of an eye-opening experience, I hope, right? So I'm going to start off with words from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and I like what he said. I mean, it was he had a lot of moving speeches, that I must say. There was also a funny moment whereby, if I may share, he was given the wrong speech text, and he recognized it at the start of it, and quickly. That I mean, it was a good icebreaker moment to have that to start the day as well, right? So the Secretary General opened up COP27 with a strong note, reminding everyone that we must be on path to accomplish what we have all put together and agreed upon with the Paris Agreement. And the 27th session of COP, which is held at Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, just for everyone's knowledge, is a reminder that we are on a highway to climate health with its foot on the gas pedal. So when I heard things like this, I'm wide awake, and it hits the right spot, and it sends the urgency of action across the entire room, if I may say, and resonating through media outlets going throughout the entire world. So the SecGen has called for world leaders to focus the growing urgency of climate change and the hazards that are further being accelerated by ongoing war in Ukraine, for an example, things that are happening in Pakistan, for an example, in terms of flood, and that we all need to keep our attention and focus on climate change, and that the course of work must be together. We must support peace efforts, and tremendous suffering will ensue if we lose focus on this particular pertinent topic. So it's very important, the things that he said. And I also liked what he said when he said, cooperate or perish. And this was a call for everyone to join hands, let it be private sector, let it be public sector, or let it be the civil society organizations, that we must all work together and never work in silo. So those of us who are passionate about this topic, we all understand that we must work together, we must cooperate, or we have to perish. So I think aptly put by the SecGen himself, and I think it sends out a good signal to everyone. So what everyone has to remember, I mean, COP is, as Boyd mentioned earlier, it is a political landscape, right? So we have over 100 world leaders who were there, apart from the 35,000 or so people who are attending COP itself. And a lot of focus was given to to tell their stories of being devastated perhaps by climate change, and or steps and measures that they were taking in order to mitigate or even come up with adaptation strategies. So it was a good sharing platform, and the tone was set very correctly. So when the SecGen mentioned that you cooperate and perish, I believe he's also targeting it to the biggest emitters, which is China and America, telling them that they have to work hand in hand in order to bring this climate conversation to a better height and to make it into a reality of reduction, right? So important to understand that these two countries alone are responsible for over 40% of greenhouse gas emissions around the world, right? So it is important that we always get a commitment from these two big players. And I think the COP was also a good atmosphere to see some activists given to be heard, There were also protests that were happening there as well. You know, I assume it's orchestrated protests, but nonetheless, it sends a clear signal that the messaging around climate change is important. I myself personally ran towards a particular protest, and they were talking about financing for climate action, right? And very interesting, and it was eye-opening experience nonetheless. Hoping to see that all this is not just talk, and it will move into actions, right? So important thing to remember is that we must fight this together, and we must win this together. And I believe that the 8 billion human was born just right after COP27. So it is an important reminder to us that for generations to come, and for them to have a good planet to live in, we will all need to put our efforts together and work collectively, or we will end up with a suicide pact, so to say, right? So it's good to keep that in mind. So any questions, I will welcome it later on as I move on to the next part. Now, the most important takeaway was loss and damage. And what is this loss and damage is a question that I think many people were quickly scrambling to try to decipher and understand as well quickly. So nations decided to establish a loss and damage fund, and this happened closer towards the end of COP itself. So it was good that there was a strong message coming out towards the end, and this loss and damage fund is to assist poor countries that are hit by warming planet and by climate change, and it's a progressive step taken forward for, if I may say, the global north to give a helping hand back to the global south, right? So this is also a form of collaboration, and also a form of the previous emitters coming back, owning up to the guys who are now being developed, right? So they had a head start. Meanwhile, we are just being developed, right? So it is important that this fund now brings about the balance in terms of the previous emitters, and I mean the global north and the global south as well, right? So the idea of establishing the fund came from understanding that the poor countries are most impacted now by extreme weather events. We have floods, we have heat waves, we have things that were not happening in a frequency of what or how it is happening now. So developed nations which have contributed most, I mean, close to 92% of greenhouse gas emissions can be blamed, so to say, for the climate crisis that we are facing now by countries that were developed much earlier. And so we are living their emissions. That is our future now, and they put us here. So if we all don't work collectively, you can imagine the next future generation will be having it much worse than us. So it's a nice case study. We get to see where we were, and then how rapid urbanization and transformation of industries has now led to where we are now living in this current climate and this current standing of the world. And if nothing is done further, it will move towards a more scary situation for, may say, right? So calling for the loss and damage fund to be set up towards justice, if I may say. I think the UN SecGen also reminded countries to prioritize and remain focused on climate action, include targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and keep alive the Paris Agreement of 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. So this is very important, right? Because I noticed personally that at COP, the conversation around the 1.5 degrees seems to have taken a backseat, as more conversations were happening about funding, more conversations were happening about carbon or carbon credits, and Article 6 of the Paris Agreement seems to be a bigger conversation compared to the 1.5 degrees. And so it was important that the focus remains on the climate issue at hand. And also good to mention that as we move forward, fund will bring about the balance. So who will be contributing to the fund will be the developed countries and the private and public sources that come from there. And the major economies will hopefully join hands to fund the initiative and develop and help the developing countries to move forward without having the brunt of facing the brunt of more climate impacted world that we're going to live in. So important to understand what and damage fund is all about. Interesting to know how it will evolve and be actionized as it move forward. I mean, it's good to have a stand on it first, but more important that it's not just words, but it's transformed into actions, right? So the understanding is that there will be a committee set up to establish and operationalize the fund, and mechanisms will be put together. So we're looking at billions here, and if it's done properly, done transparently, and done in a more collective manner, that this will definitely help a lot of countries to meet their ambitions as well as meet their commitments towards the 1.5 degrees Paris Agreement, right? Okay, keeping the interest of time in mind as well. Now, representing the UNGC, it's always important for me to also share what the private sector is saying, and it's nice to hear that apart from all the doom and gloom, private sector are in a more substantial manner and not just giving empty slogans, so to say, right? So I think America has also announced their intention to require all suppliers of the federal government to set science-based targets. So it's not just you setting your own targets. And if they were to use the SBTI or Science-Based Target Initiative, then it will automatically be verified targets by SBTI themselves, right? So that's very, if you ask me, it's extremely important to set science-based targets and not just do a PR gimmick. Now, and this call out was made very strongly about greenwashing, right? And to counter the accusations of greenwashing, more mechanisms are coming in place. Interestingly, a warm welcome that ISO themselves published the net zero guidelines at COP27. This is very important because companies rely on ISO as a benchmarker, right? And I'm also happy to share that the ISSB, which is the Sustainability Reporting Framework of IFRS, will be launching a guideline which will incorporate GRI, TCFD, and all the other reporting mechanisms under ISSB to become one reporting framework as well. So now we have the ISO Net Zero guidelines, and when the ISSB framework is out, reporting will be made much more easier. So it's good to know that there is going to be a more cohesive and a platform that everyone will be using. If not, we have this conversation about which standards do we use now. Do we use the CDP? Do we use SASB? Which one do we use? So if there is a ISSB standard that cuts across and incorporates GRI, TCFD, SASB, and everything else in it, then we have, so to say, the one book for all finally. Now, the transition will also require innovation across green technologies, from carbon capture, usage and storage, and sustainable fuels and sustainable agriculture. So conversations were happening at COP27 itself around CCUS itself, which is carbon capture, usage and storage. It's very interesting that there are some companies, I mean, when we look at it, there are some companies who are just awakening themselves to this conversation. Meanwhile, some have activated themselves and moving forward, but then you also have the advanced guys who have accelerated their journey, and they are talking about more advanced conversations, if I may in terms of CCUS and so on. And Petronas was there at COP27, and they shared with us and also to the media that they will be working towards their methane emission management in an alliance with UNEP at COP27. So this announcement was made, and they are also strongly looking at Scope 3 emissions in terms of their supply chain. So those of the suppliers who are working with Petronas, heads up to you. Scope 3 emissions will require you to report back to Petronas in terms of your emissions, and they will definitely want you to reduce, or they will look at alternatives. So the business case to change, it's obvious, is very important, and it's a question of, are you going to remain relevant, or are you going to be pushed aside, and are you going to be the next Nokia, or are you going to move to becoming a smartphone, so to say, right? So it's important. Now, for those of you who are wondering what is going on Malaysian carbon market, I mean, Singapore has already made it clear, and the question then turned back to what is happening in Malaysia. So I had the opportunity of catching up with our friends from Bursa Malaysia, and happy to share with everyone that the voluntary carbon market, or VCM, will be launched by Bursa Malaysia on the 9th of December 2022, which is just 2 weeks away. So with that VCM in place, we will finally have the guidelines of carbon trading and carbon related conversations in Malaysia. How do we go about it? Which standards we'll be using? Are we using Vera, which I understand that we'll be using Vera and gold standards as the benchmark? And what will happen in terms of, how do you, if you have a carbon farm, what do you do? How do you get verified? How do you sell? How do you go to market? So all these questions will be answered on the 9th of December. So keep a lookout for the voluntary carbon market that is coming your way from Bursa Malaysia, who will be the regulators for it, right? So last but not least, understanding the conversation also include circular economy. Now, green tech is something that I've included in this because you must have technology and circular economy working hand in hand. And without innovation, it is sometimes close to impossible to find the circular economy sweet spot, so to say, right? And for an example, 45% of GHG comes from the way we make and use products and food. This is, as much as we talk about and industry players who are biggest emitters, but we also tend to forget that farming and poultry farming and products and food, these guys are one of the biggest contributors of GHG. So I want to go back to the SDGs when it comes to circular economy. I think it is important for us to remember SDG goal 12, which is responsible consumption and production, keeping in mind waste, from, and always understanding that, finding a circular economy model is important for us as we move forward. And I wish to share, I had a conversation with Carlsberg Malaysia a couple of days back, and they were sharing with me their ESG strategy, which I want to pick out just one part of it, which is zero packaging waste front. 92% of returnable glass bottles in Malaysia will be reused and recycled under the distributor return scheme, equivalent to about 100,000 a day. As scary as it is that we are consuming about 100,000 bottles of beer a day, but on the plus side is it's good to know that the bottles will be recycled and reused, and additionally 100% of their cans, shrink and stretch wraps will be disposed in the brewery and recycled as well, right? So it's important to know that we have companies in Malaysia who are now having this conversation about how do we pivot towards becoming more sustainable. They're looking at Nike, they're looking at Marks and Spencers, for an example, they're looking at Adidas, and they're saying we have to do something like that over here, and they're using SDG Goal 12 as a good baseline for them to move forward, right? Now, in terms of technology, as I mentioned earlier, it must go hand in hand. It's good to know that globally, UK has committed about 65 million pounds to help accelerate and develop the new green technologies to help fund the country's clean energy sector. And as we come back from, although Egypt is not Africa and not Middle East, but happy to share what I read earlier a couple of weeks back was the Saudi Kingdom is planning to build 320,000 EV cars a year once they have the infrastructure ready. So it's good to know that the world is moving forward in terms of getting themselves more green, more clean, and more proper. And in that sense, it is good to know that companies themselves are committed towards pushing the needle and greenwashing, not impact washing and not social washing, not doing all these washings, but are having proper and committed targets to move forward as we come closer towards the 2030 deadline for the agenda. So thank you so much, Boyd. I'm sorry I've taken out a bit of time. I believe I shared a little bit of snapshot of everything that I can share. If you guys want to know more, feel free to reach out to me. Boyd has my number. I'm also in the WhatsApp group. You can also find me on or you can just visit our local website, ungcmyb.org, or UN Global Compact org, which is our global site. Back to you, Boyd. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Eddie. That's really, really good to see, and a lot of sharing from your side, because I think the conversation is very, very strong. A lot of things are happening globally and by countries, and we are all facing something similar. I think Hun Teo was talking about deforestation, about the issues relating to flooding. It's not common to our part of the world, but it's all over the place. It's one of those things that's, if you like, happening, but we are kind of very slow in reacting to it. And somehow we are asking other countries to help out as much as possible, when we should also be doing ourselves, obviously. And I mean, during COP, the big one was Pakistan. I think they said 1/3 of the country is flooded, and there are major issues there. So these things are happening not because of one particular country, but it's a global thing. But we are kind of what Al Gore was saying. We're like in the amphibian or the frog in a coconut shell. We adapt. We keep adapting until it's too late.
Yeah.
So humans tend to do that. We don't concern ourselves too much on, oh, there's flooding, but it's okay. We blame other people. There's rubbish on the street. We blame the authorities for not picking it up. Things like that. These are happening, but the main thing really is to air this and do something and go with it. So all of us have a stake in making sure that this happen and things got to be done. Now, thank you, Eddie, for sharing.
Sorry, quick question. I see
Yeah.
I see a question in the chat from Hun Teo, who said that the so-called Sarawak renewable energy corridor is also a real concern. Mega dams in Borneo drown rainforests and result in GHG emissions because of release of methane and flies against the circular economy. Do I address this now, or do we want to save this for later? Boyd?
No, I think you're welcome to respond to it, because it's Hun Teo mentioned that during your presentation. So if you're okay with that, please give a quick
maybe I mean I'm not the best person
or comment.
I'm not the best person to give a full-blown answer, but I did have this conversation with Sarawak Energy, and I'm just gonna recall back based on my conversation, because I know that hydropower is also I mean, apart from being a good source of renewable energy, but there's also this methane emissions issue that comes from it, right? And what I recall hearing from them was, of course, the methane comes from the reservoir due to the decay of the biomass, right? And being situation whereby that it needs to be addressed, I do believe that they are addressing. So from my conversation with them, they are using a GHG model called the GRES tool, which is developed by the Quebec University to determine the CH4 emissions plus other GHG emissions from the reservoir of Sarawak Energy's dams, right? And the model was developed based on 6,000 plus dams, if I'm not mistaken, all over the world. And the measurement database comes from there. So the result will be to model found that and to be validated by the Quebec University as well as the International Hydropower Association, who will be doing an audit of sorts to see what sort of methane impact is coming from the dams itself. So I hope that sort of answers the question. Of course, the best person to answer this question will be Sarawak Energy themselves. But I also heard from them, they were with us at COP27, and I also heard from them that they have from their 3 coal-fired power plants, they have now shut down one of it, right? So in the transition, I know that there's no perfect solution to the whole thing. There is definitely going to be an impact when, I mean, you dig one hole, there's going to be, to cover another, there's going to be one hole that is already there, right? But I believe that they are seriously looking at it as an issue that they would not want to have as a repercussion. They want to look at the indigenous community as well as what is happening in terms of the methane that is coming from the dams itself. So I hope I answered the question. Back to you, Boyd.
Right, thank you, bro. That's really useful. I think we go on to the next speaker. They'll come back to the forest fragmentation. Very important issue again. Thank you, Ariani and Hun Teo, for that. And we can hopefully have time to discuss it later on. But I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Asi Budiati, a very good friend of mine, who's the team leader for the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. Asia project, very important piece of work happening now, halfway through. And just quick introduction for Asi while your slides are being prepared. She's the team leader. This GCOM project covers Japan, China, Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, and India. As you can see, it contains roughly about 2 billion plus population. Very, very big area to cover. But it concerns, this GCOM project, it concerns about city level GHG emissions and how they can align. Because the idea of GCOM is if they get together as a country, not only Asia, but the whole world, if the global platform of GCOM comes together, it can dent, if you like, or reduce 10% or more of the carbon emissions of the whole planet. So it makes a big difference. But I ask Asi to talk more on that. Asi is a very avid promoter of climate change and sustainable development activities. She's worked with big organizations such as UNDP, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for water and sanitation, and on renewable energy projects. Currently, she's head of the team leader of the Global Covenant, but she's also a PhD candidate at SOAS, which is, if you like, the birthplace of Borneo Organization Limited in London, if I'm correct on that, Ken. So Asi, if you're ready, I'd like to introduce you, and please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Boyd, but unfortunately, I cannot share my screen. I think I need to be co-host, so
Okay.
I can share my screen, yes.
Okay, let me make you a co-host. I'm just trying to find you.
Yeah, so while waiting, so yes, as Boyd mentioned that me and Boyd, we used to work together at the GCOM phase 1. We had a very good first training in Johor. That was really excellent with the IRDA team. I'm based, well, I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia, but the headquarters of this position is based in Bangkok. So it's between Jakarta and Bangkok. So on Monday, I will travel to Bangkok. So with this COVID restriction has been lifted, it's much easier for us to travel nowadays.
You are co-host now. You are co-host now.
Great. Yes. Thank you. So can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to give a brief introduction about what is GCOM before I'm going forward to explain what is my intervention in COP27. So this is, I don't know if I can play this. It's very short. I just want to give you the context.
We're in a race against time on climate change, and we have to start moving faster right now. I think everybody now understands that urgent action is needed. We have to limit the increase of temperature to 1.5 degrees. And to do that, we have to act now, and we have to act at all levels of government.
This world is at a critical point, a point where people have waited 30 years trying to address climate change.
To overcome the current climate crisis, we need to make changes starting now.
Mayors and local leaders understand that because they see the effects of climate change firsthand.
Cities is where it happens, where the crisis strikes first, but also where the solutions are found first.
It is the momentum to act now at the global level, at the national level, and the local level.
Young people are standing up. So we really notice there's a lot of changes, and you have to really bring pressure to those who are not accepting that if you're not going this direction, we can't save the world.
There is a new momentum that has come. We have what I would call the beginning of civil disobedience on climate change. That historically has always been a very important component of any major political change, and hence it is very welcome.
So what you're seeing just now is, oh, sorry.
We're in a race.
Okay, so that is the voice of the mayors under the Global Covenant of Mayors. So currently, already more than 12,600 cities around the world join commitment to the GCOM. And we are co-chaired by one is from the EU part, which is Frans Timmermans. I will bring him up later during our discussion. And then the other one is Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, which is philanthropist, and he also previously the ex-mayor of New York. Again, these two global actors, I will bring them up again in our conversation because they're very much related in COP, and then especially on the loss and damage fund that we will mostly discuss. So this is just to give a brief explanation about GCOM to put in the context of my participation in COP27. So there are different parts of GCOM chapter in the world. There's a Canada, US, Latin America. The headquarters is in Europe. And then my part is covering Asia. So this is what I said, that the co-chair is between Michael Bloomberg and Frans Timmermans. And then from Asia, the board mayor from Southeast Asia is from the Philippines, Mayor of Makati. So this is the coverage of Asia. We have currently 213 cities. For specific for Malaysia, we have already 21 cities signed commitment, thanks to Jacqueline and also Boyd. Jacqueline is here. They are playing a big role to include, to promote GCOM in Malaysia. And I'm hoping that more and more Malaysian cities will sign commitment. So just focus on Borneo. We have Kota Kinabalu, Penampang, Sandakan, Tawau, Miri, Kapit, Sibu are signing commitment to GCOM from Malaysia side. And then from Indonesia side is Tarakan, Bontang, Balikpapan, Banjarmasin, and Pontianak. So what we are doing, which might be relevant for our discussion today related with Borneo, we provide capacity buildings, regional trainings, focus group discussion, and direct technical assistance. So we invite cities across Asia, Southeast Asia, and then nationally in the case of Malaysia, we organize capacity buildings and event. And then just recently this year, I think it's in April, if I'm not mistaken, April or May, I forgot. It was on May, right, Boyd, that we organized capacity buildings in Kota Kinabalu. So majority of the cities, it's on May, right?
We did it in August.
In August, okay, sorry. Yeah, oh yeah, the first training on May, it's in Kuala Lumpur, but then on the,
August.
yeah.
KL in May.
Yeah, KL is in May. Yeah, and then in the Kota Kinabalu one, which is basically for cities in Borneo, we organize in Kota Kinabalu. So based on our current database regarding cities actions on the GHG emissions inventory, so this is the status that based on our calculation, an average cities in Asia are targeting 49% of emissions reduction. And this is what GCOM is trying to promote and support, so that the actions, the targets of emissions reduction that they are targeting can be, articulated, can be really implemented. So going to my participation in COP, so this is the profile of how much that Asian cities would like to reduce their emissions. Going to Malaysia, this is the number is very, so it's 20 million metric tons, the baseline, and then by 2030, going into 7,628. But of course, this is on the disclaimer that this data are on the basis that those GCOM signatories submit the data to us. And if you can see from this, the biggest number of GCOM signatories that submitting data is actually from Japan, follow up with Korea, and then Philippines. So hopefully that the more data we receive from the cities, the more information we can find out, and then to understand what are the priorities of the emissions reduction in each country, and then how we can help them. So this data I brought to the COP27 because I was very lucky that I was being invited as one of the technical, one of the official representative from Asia to represent at the technical dialogue for Roundtable 1 on mitigation. So just started last year, COP is initiating a global stocktake. So they want to hear from different players. It's a cities association, it's an NGO or private parties. So this is the global stocktake is basically a non-party non-party organization. So on top of the party, which is Boyd has just mentioned that there's a country who's doing a negotiation, they also want to hear the voice from the non-party side. It was selected only 45 seats around the world, divided into 3. So 15 seats for mitigation, 15 seats for adaptation, and then 15 seats for financing. So I was very lucky to be part of the mitigation roundtable. We discussed 4 main key things, which is the first is to understand what are the actions that has been done at the local level on the mitigation effort towards countries' NDC's target. So this is where I present those data that we collect in Asia, that we are saying in Asia, we are targeting to emissions reduction at the 49%. Some of the actions that we are trying to promote is renewable energy, urban transport, and then on the waste management. And then we discuss what are the technology that being implemented or what are needed at the cities level in terms of transforming this industrial and transport system. And on top of that, very relevant with the Borneo part is the discussion on the AFOLU, because other than reducing emissions, for our case in Borneo, we are, I guess we could say that we have the privilege of preserving GHG sinks sequestration. I hope that I'm not making the wrong term, because we have a lot of forests. So we can, kind of offset it with our forests. And then in that discussion, we also discuss about the result-based payment. I'm not sure if you have heard that Indonesia just received a result-based payment from GCF. And that is something that I suppose the Borneo part from Malaysia can also pursue, because you have a lot of forests. And then on top of that, of course, we discuss what is the link with the social and economic consequences. The results of the global stocktake will be released next year in February. So this is this document will be an accompanied document from the negotiation by the country or the party. So I was really very lucky to be part of this discussion, and definitely as soon as this document, the report is issued, I will definitely share to everyone in here again. And then, of course, being me as Indonesian, I also participate in the discussion in Indonesia Pavilion. And then the last discussion that I was being informed is about the just energy transition. So they made the deal, I guess, the negotiation in COP before they move the agreement in G20 in Bali. So it was a very tough negotiation, because one of the key things that we need to confirm is to get this deal, we need to shut down 33 units of coal power plants. This is our promise. I discussed with several of renewable energy experts. They're saying that this is actually a big challenge for us, because to replace 33 units of coal power plants, it means that Indonesia needs to have a big capacity to transition to renewable energy. It means that We need to build quick, and then we need to build massive. And then it's not an easy thing. But, well, I mean, this is a very high political commitment. The deal has been signed in G20. So let's see how it goes. I suppose there will be a lot of renewable energy project next year in Indonesia, so as a neighbor. And then I'm sure that the biggest part will be in Kalimantan, because yeah, we have the new capital city there. I just heard in the news this morning that we need to start moving ourselves since 2024. So when it's launched, the opening the new capital city on 2025, some of the people's government institution, embassy, I guess international company already been set up there. So we will start moving ourselves by 2024. So I guess this is indeed a very good opportunity for Borneo Forum to be part of this. And then also one of the commitment that we make is the net sink on FOLU, forest and land use, by 2030. So we hope that our net sink will be balanced or even greater than the emissions. So this is probably something that can also be replicated at the Borneo part. Another thing is, of course, loss and damage fund. Because I work at the EU, so I think it's not it's not finished if I'm not referring to this as well. Of course, EU is one of the main countries that is targeted because of they are basically, well, we could say that the GHG emissions that is currently in the atmosphere is part of the pre-industrial process that was made by EU and then the US. So EU should be responsible for that. And then Frans Timmermans, which is the co-chair of GCOM, which is also the first negotiator for the EU, has announced that they will allocate 60 million for loss and damage under the Global Gateway program. And then they also announced 1 billion initiative to support Africa, because indeed in COP27, the one that's saying that the most suffer, I mean, the African voice, they're very loud to say that they are suffering the most because of this climate change. So I think, I mean, maybe in Asia, we are not that strong voice, although actually I could see that between Africa and Asia, we also suffer almost similar, especially on the Pacific island, where they could, I mean, within 10 or I don't know, 10 to 20 years, they could be drowned because of this climate issues. Regarding the loss and damage fund itself, the final deal, according to Frans Timmermans, it will be finalized in COP28 next year in Dubai, which is put me in you know, in a position where at some point I work for the EU, but then at some point I work at the developing countries. I think if the discussion for the loss and damage will only be discussed next year in COP28, I think it will be too late. It should have been discussed since now. But anyway, that is just for us to keep pursuing this, because yeah, this is important for us as well. The last, oh yeah, so just so to link with what GCOM is doing related with this, other than of course the loss and damage at high level, I just want to link it with my project that we also supporting cities in the region. So in this case, I'm sounding it again to the Bornean people here that we provide technical assistance. So if the cities have action plans that we could link to financial, then we are welcome and open for that. To be in detail, so next year, This is our activities, and definitely starting next year, you can reach out to Jacqueline, who is also here. We have a coaching clinic on climate financing proposal. We also will have so the training that we will provide, we will divide it into two. One is on the climate financing, and then one is on the business model and technology solution. Because when we discuss with the cities, sometimes they know what to do, but they don't really understand what the technology or solution that they want to bring. So for instance, on renewable energy, or let's say the city wants to improve their urban mobility, whether they want to have a BRT or MRT, or, so this type of technology solutions and business models, we will have a coaching session. Once the cities understand what type of technology that they want to bring, and then they will do the climate financing proposal. So that's what we will do next year. So please, if you have anything in mind that you think you need support on this one, you can reach us at any time. And then we will have a one-on-one session to develop the project proposal, and then matchmaking with public and private providers. Go back again to COP27. I just want to add more that I also moderate the session on women leaders on climate change. So the speakers are Mayor from Nabil from Tunisia, President from Nouakchott from Mauritania, former Mayor of Bethlehem, Palestine, Dr. Laila Iskandar, which is the ex-Minister of State and Urban Renewal and Informal Settlement of Egypt, and then also represent from the EU, because this is an EU funding project. So we discussed about the importance of equal opportunity to provide access between male and female to natural resources, information and capacity buildings, the importance of bringing women's voice to the global level, engagement since early stage, and planning. Other than that, this is all of our activities, GCOM in COP27. I cannot explain one by one, but I will put it, I'm putting it in my presentation, and definitely you can always visit this. So one of the very important one is this summary for urban policy maker of the IPCC 6 AR. This is very important document that we are co-authoring together with scientists. So we did a very thorough process on this one. So we reach out to cities around the world, representative scientists, academicians, to get their feedback. And then we sum up in here in this document. So if you think that reading the 6 assessment report is too long, then maybe you can read this for the summary of urban policymakers. It gives the very substance, important key things of the IPCC document. And yeah, other paper that might be relevant. That's all from my side. And if you need more information about GCOM, I'm just let us know. And then also feel free to reach out Jacqueline, which is in here as well. Jacqueline is the country coordinator for Malaysia, by the way. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Asi. That's really good and very comprehensive. It's good to know there's a lot of things are happening from the point of view of the GCOM, as well as what is happening around the world and the involvement of so many players. And you are in a position to make a difference in Malaysia as well as other countries. So I'm very excited about that. The other exciting thing, of course, is you mentioning about the closure or potential closure of all the coal power plants from in Indonesia, and the focus of new things.
Well, not all, 33 coal power plants. Yes.
And thank you. And all the focus being on Kalimantan. So based on that and the funding that's the potential funding from the US and other places, it speaks a good volume, if you like, as a heads up to others who are interested in going into the renewable energy platform. And we could be one of the recipients of that area, we being Kalimantan, of course, and through Indonesia and through Nusantara. So this is another potential place for us to focus on. Hence what I was talking about earlier about being the hub of activities, especially on climate actions and environmental sustainability in the area. So bear that in mind. You never know, in 2-3 years time, something very positive will come up. So you guys in this platform can be ready for that. Okay, thank you, Asi, again. And I move on to our next great speaker, Baizura. I just want to introduce Baizura a little bit here. Baizura received her master's and PhD in sustainability of resources from Okayama University, a university that I attended. One of the things that strike me about Okayama University when I was there years ago now is the fact that when we got there were just millions of bicycles. Nobody drove into the campuses because the focus is very much on using your own power, if you like. So it's wonderful to see on that. Her research is focused on sound materials cycle society. Very interesting topic, something that maybe Baizura can explain a bit further on that. But from a general point of view, it's about environmental economics, I guess, which is a very wonderful profession to be in. She was involved, like I said earlier, as a member of our Iskandar Malaysia Low Carbon Society project, which was funded by JICA. And that's how we got to know her, we being Chu and others. And she was part and parcel of that event because she was dealing with the Okayama University was dealing with the waste management part of the work. Baizura is also the advisor for education and sustainable development at 2 regional centers of expertise on ESD in Japan, which is Okayama and Chubu. And she helps to revitalize programs on that issue. She is now the lead consultant of DBR Sindrin Berhad, overseeing projects relating to green building certification and advising on ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance framework. And I now like to call Baizura to present, and let's hear what she is going to say. Thank you, Baizura.
Thank you, Boyd. You can hear me, right? And see my screen now. Okay. So thank you, Boyd. Yes, I was purposely putting the sustainability of resources there because just to clarify, when people ask me what's my profile, my background, I really like to put that. But in reality, it's something very, very simple. I will talk about it later during my presentation today. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation for the Borneo Forum. I'm dialing in today from Iskandar, Malaysia. I just moved to Iskandar, Malaysia recently. Just to be clear that the topic of my discussion today will focus more on the circular economy, on what's happening in the ground here and within my footprint during my studies and my research. So in the end, towards the COP27, it's more my thought and my question also to the presenters that attended COP27 and also for us all, like Raymond said at the beginning, that we hope that at least we can take something back and to reflect about it, to think about it and what we can do, because I'm sure none of us here have the one-point solution to how to change what's happening now and how to overcome the situation of climate change in the world. So let me start my discussion today. I would like to discuss with everyone on climate exchange people first. Well, I'm not a denier of that. You know, sustainability is about profit, triple bottom P, people, profit, and planet. But I really like us to maybe give a chance for the idea of to put a little bit more responsibility on the people, because we know that we are the one that contribute to this problem, and also to give a priority to the people when we think about the solutions or how we can come out from this climate emergency. So let's go into my discussion, my presentation today. I'd like to talk a little bit about my footprint on this circular economy things. So it started when I was born in Malacca, raised in Kedah, so I'm a Malaysian, but not a Borneo. Spent my 20s in Okayama and Aichi, Japan. So most of my work my thought heavily influenced by how the Japanese see the environmental protection and how to take care of our environment and the community building. And I also had a chance to spend my life a little bit in France, Canada, before I came back in Malaysia, just right before the pandemic. So as Boyd mentioned, I was spending my whole university years in Okayama, Japan. So that was where I did my degree in environmental and civil engineering. And when I go into master and PhD, was majoring in sustainability of resources. So this is when I met with Iskandar Malaysia team because of the SATRAP project. Is actually the topic of the study was about low carbon society scenario for Asian region. And Iskandar Malaysia at the time was as the pilot study because of the development of Iskandar Malaysia as one of the center for economic region. So it is a good chance when the SATRAP project and Iskandar Malaysia was developing their CDP and whatnot. So this is where my first exposure to circular economy, low carbon society, sound material cycle society. So it sounds very, very complicated, but actually it's what we really do is about solid waste management. So this is really, the study was really focused on circular economy. So when people talk about Japan and how they manage their waste, or in any aspect of Japanese action or lifestyle, people always tend to think about the high-end technology, about the machineries, and about, to some extent, about robots. But actually, the study was suggesting that why can't we see the waste generation from consumption behavior? So because in this case, we put into the equation the socioeconomic factor, the population, the household demographic info, the consumption expenditure, because we know that whatever we buy today is going to be end up as waste at the end of the day. So this is really, really about circular economy, because what we try to do is that to see like the time lapse of what is spent now and what we need to prepare in order for us to be able to manage the waste, what kind of technology we need to develop, what kind of infrastructure we need to have in the country. So when you see today, people buy 200,000 of clothes, and we know in 3-5 years, there will be 300,000 kilogram or ton of materials or clothes waste that will come in when they buy electrical appliances, when they buy cars. So we know what to expect and know what kind of technology we need. So, but what is more interesting at that time was that, as Boyd mentioned, that Okayama was actually the center of, this is also acknowledged by UNESCO as a city united for education for sustainable development. So actually, in Japan, it is more like strong on the bottom-up approach. So we hear also today, the first presenter was talking about top-bottom approach and trying to move more towards bottom-up. This is one of the strengths of the Japanese, the bottom-up approach, and then also the voluntarism. We can see also a lot of news where when the Japanese team goes to a football match and everything, they will start cleaning the stadium before leaving. So this is really not just as a showcase, but this is really what's happening in their daily life, and especially in Okayama, because in 2014, Okayama was the host for UNESCO World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development. Well, not so different from COP27, UNESCO World Conference. Also, when we talk about it, we have the image of it will be high level people, the policy makers, or the country leaders that will be sitting and discussing about what to do next, what's happening. But the center of the World Conference in Okayama, the UNESCO World Conference in Okayama, is about to have the whole city approach. So actually the people, the community is the one that sit and discuss what's happening and what we want and how we can do it ourselves, or with the help, of course, with the help of the government and the industry and everything, but how we people can do it for our daily life. So one of the main conference in Okayama was Kominkan CLC International Conference. This is on community-based human development. So Kominkan in Japanese means community center in Malay. So we see that especially in Okayama, in each and every neighborhood, they have like a small one household size of building where it becomes the center for community, where in the whole generation, the grandparents generation, the parents generation, the kids, the grandkids generation can come and benefit to some extent. So this is how also they develop the feelings of taking care of their communities, and this is where they learned about even how to recycle properly, how to reduce the consumption, how to protect the environment. So after Okayama and after working on the ESG also in IT, so I had a chance to go to Normandy, Quebec. So this is when my view was changed very heavily regarding the thought of the circular economy. So at that moment, I was in France on a spouse visa, and it is compulsory to attend assimilation course. So and I don't know. It is very political to say the real reason, but as I'm a Muslim, so I was put in a majority Muslim group that is trying to be to have the visa or the right to be in France. And this is when I got the chance to be together with a lot of immigrants. You know, like when most of the people there is, I was already at my early 30s, but most of the members there is just at their early 20s, but they have been living on the road for 3-4 years, walking from South Africa or from Iran, Iraq towards the northern part of France with the hope to cross the channel towards the greener land. So what is interesting here is it's beyond the politics or beyond the war and everything. What I see is that this is the waste of resources. You know, when we talk about circular economy, we talk a lot about materials. So can't we start talking about is it sufficient to focus only on material and not talking about the human factor, the resources here? So that is why I'm more and more interested in, well, we need to put people first in the actions or the policies that we take. So after that, I came back to Malaysia just right before the pandemic. I was kind of lucky because I came back, COVID-19 haven't hit Malaysia yet, and I was hired in a green building consulting company. So then this is where I moved the path. Well, the path is never straight, if some people say so. The path from heavily involvement in a bottom-up approach, this is where I come back to the top-bottom approach. So where in the green building, in the construction field, there is a what they call the green building certification, and we see another type of certification, which is health and well-being certification. These two certifications complement each other, but we see after pandemic, it start to be a little bit more demand on health and well-being certification. So what it is actually? So for the green building certification, or the green building requirement for the developer or the real estate owner or the building owner is about making sure the energy reduction, the water reduction, efficiency. But the health and well-being here is what to put the people first. So the goal is to have a positive human experience. This is where we can see that, okay, rather than the circular economy that focus on the materials, then now we start seeing that more and more people are putting on, focusing on human at each and every level of the development. So why it is also important and getting more and more interest, because there is a study saying that the global health and wellness industry is a $4.2 trillion market. So when we talk about this, then the developer, the real estate companies will start to put a little bit more interest, and also that multinational companies coming from their global push have no more choice but take care of this, because taking care of their people means less absenteeism in the office, and also this means more productivity. But what it is really about? So what it's really about is that additionally to the reduction in energy, reduction and waste, reduction in water, or using less materials for construction, it is now the needs to focus also on mind, community, and nourishment of the people that is going to be in the city or using the building, the space that we are building. So what it is actually? So in terms of community, is about making sure the accessibility and universal design are being taught from the day one at the design stage, when you acquire the project, when you have when you're opening the land. And then also the two parts that is interesting here, I think it is also when we discussed yesterday about how it can benefit in Borneo actually, because it's about diversity and inclusion and civic engagement. So nowadays, when you have new development project, you cannot anymore just build house as much as you want, or office space as much as you want, without thinking like where people can go away from their daily activities. Like for example, in an office, you cannot have just a small corner in the office as pantry anymore. So you need to have enough seating at the office that will allow people to sit and eat away from their working space. And then in diversity and inclusion, also like how you hire and how you make sure that the needs of these minorities are being thought in the design of your space. In terms of mind, also there will be the needs for the owner or the organization leaders to put health education in their annual program, and then to have programs such as stress management and restorative opportunities and spaces, to make sure that within the 8 hours of working, there is a place where people can go and relax. And then when you build a house, it's not just a bedroom that is enough size for one bed, but the house size must also think about where the people can get together or can be away and have a personal time. We see this as a good thinking point during the pandemic, when we all have to be in the house, working from home, school online. So we see that, well, this has not been taught previously. So from now on, this will more and more become compulsory. And also nourishment nowadays, like you cannot just put any snacks in the pantries, and so you have to start thinking about offering of fruits and vegetables. And also if you are developing a residential area tower, so it must have either located nearby a place that sells food, fresh food, or you must have a space that you invite grocer to open and sell fresh foods, or else your development wouldn't be approved. So this is how we see that more and more movement on this circular economy, on thinking about resources, material, reduction of energy, reduction of waste, towards a more and more focusing on the people. So come to the COP27, one of the tagline, also what Boyd include in the advertisement of this program, is that it seems progress is slow. So what I want to ask also to the three other speakers, or to other participants today, what do you feel? Because I do feel that it is yes, I agree with that. And when hearing about that, I come to mind that I'm not sure if a lot of you have watched this movie on downsizing. It is from 2017. So the movie is not like not a blockbuster movie, but what's the issue that they are bringing in the movie is very interesting. I think it's very, very relevant in seeing why we are moving slow. When they're talking about downsizing, you thought about, okay, using less and everything, but in the reality, when he goes just smaller, but still requiring the same size, mega house, and also like still lots of cars. So is this really what the idea is about? And then also one video, I think about the Tuvalu. This is a speech from Tuvalu president. You can watch it just a little bit.
Our land, our ocean, our culture are the most precious assets of our people. And to keep them safe from harm, no matter what happens in the physical world, we'll move them to the cloud. Islands like this one won't survive rapid temperature increases, rising sea levels, and droughts, so we'll recreate them virtually. Piece by piece, we'll preserve our country, provide solace to our people, and remind our children and our grandchildren what our home once was. Only concerted global effort can ensure that Tuvalu does not move permanently online and disappear forever from the physical plane.
So the message that the Tuvalu president wanted to, I think I pushed wrong button. I'm sorry, I think I pushed the wrong button. So the message that the Tuvalu president wanted to send us was that they are moving their country towards the metaverse, and then now they're going to be on metaverse and inviting us all to be on the metaverse. Well, I don't think that is I think that he's not really inviting us, but it was telling us like what we are doing not enough, or it is actually not the on the right path, if I may say. That's what also the question I'm asking myself, and I would like to the participant to also kind of like give their thought on this. Like, actually, is the progress slow, or actually are we moving forward, or we are actually moving in circle? That's what it is. Because like when they say about the loss and damage fund just now, it sounds very interesting, but when we start off the GHG reduction, we start with carbon offsetting was enough, where the emitter can go and plant tree in some foreign land, and it was accepted as one of the action. But now we realize, now more and more saying that no, it's not good enough. We need to have a net zero, where you have to reduce at the place that you conduct your business first, and then remaining only you can do carbon offsetting. So what is really the right way? We don't have the answer, but is it, for example, some people are saying that reducing plastic, single plastic used by people, stop using plastic straw is it's how it will contribute to us saving our planet. But is it really is that really the solution? Or maybe it is a good enough solution, because when we are bothered enough by the melted paper straw, we will realize that, well, we don't need the straw at all. So that was a lot of questions from me, actually, rather than any sharing of solution, because I don't think any of us have the solution that fits any one situation. It's just that I would like to again enhance that. What I think is that when we think, when we do the thinking or the planning of the circular economy, can we give a more priority to thinking of the effect of our action on the people? Because in the end, we are the one that get the most impact of it. When of course, when flooding happen, a lot of animals will suffer that, but when pandemic happen, we are all the one that is stuck in the house and getting crazy, and the mental health problem just rise to the ceiling. So that was all sharing from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Baizura. I find your presentation very, very enlightening and insightful. And first of all is that I just want what I take away from your presentation is for me, and the one thing is that you went to Japan and you started to open up your mind and you see things differently, how the Japanese actually talk about circular economy, something a new concept. Even for me, it's a new concept until I learned about it yesterday when it was mentioned by Boyd. And one thing about you mentioned also is true. When we look at the recent World Cup, now the World Cup, and we see Japanese people cleaning up after each game, holding the blue plastic bag, going around and start cleaning, and was captured on television, and then the competitor, he said this is not a gimmick, because I remember seeing this back in 2018 in the last World Cup, and it's a way, it's an attitude. And I begin to realize that all the things that we do is by if we change our attitude, we will change our behavior. Just like Maya Angelou, he says, if you don't like something, to change it. If you don't like something, just change it. But if you can't change it, change your attitude. And the other takeaway point I learned from your presentation is that we got to learn from those people who have been successful. Countries are successful. You quoted Japan, and I can quote to you a place like Costa Rica is actually 99% renewable energy, and we can learn something from there. And even like Bhutan, they are what I call a carbon negative country, and I'm sure there are things that we can learn from them and see what we can learn and adapt and apply into our situation. So thank you very much for your presentation. It's really eye-opening. So we're going to move on to the next speaker, Ms. Chu. So Ms. Chu, I'm going to introduce you, and it's a pleasure. Ms. Chu she joined Iskandar Regional Development Authority since 2013, and she oversees program and initiative that enhance ecology and the built environment, improve green mobility and infrastructure. So over the past decade, Ms. Chu has actively worked with various organizations, whether it's local or international, and to develop and implement the low carbon society blueprint and climate action plan for Iskandar, Malaysia. So if any one of you want to kickstart a low carbon society initiative in your area, she's the right person to talk to. And it is giving me a great pleasure to hand over the next session to Ms. Chu. Ms. Chu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raymond, for your kind words. So that I just want to share screen first to ensure everything okay. Sorry. Let me try. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Very good afternoon, moderator, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Being the last speaker, so that I always like a bit stressed because I need to rush things out. Bear with me for the 20 minutes. So that is I'm really happy and thanks to the organizer for inviting IRDA to speak in this event. And today I would like to share with you the Iskandar Malaysia low carbon journey. So just for those that are not familiar about Iskandar Malaysia, we actually an economic corridor. If you know Sabah, you have Sabah Development Corridor. In Johor, we have Iskandar Malaysia. So that our area is 2217 square kilometer. We cover 5 local authorities. And I'm from Iskandar Regional Development Authority. We're actually a federal statutory body that was established through an act of parliament. And our role is to plan, promote, and facilitate the development in Iskandar Malaysia. So next, I want to share with you, I think there's a lot of things that Boyd mentions, Baizura mentions, so that just let me take you through quickly. And charting Iskandar Malaysia low carbon sustainable and sustainable environment. We're actually the pioneer city in Malaysia, like what Baizura mentions. We're actually involved in this since 2009. And low carbon society blueprint is the one of the continuous effort of the research output of SATRAPs is actually funded by JICA and GST. That's how the relationship that we actually establish with the researcher from Kyoto University, Okayama universities, and also our local research team, University Technology Malaysia. From there, we managed to pick up and learn a lot. Then we managed to complete the LCS development cycle from science to policy actions and monitoring. So in this point, I just want to highlight that Iskandar Malaysia, we're just not talking about policy, but we actually is all backed by science, how actually we do our target setting, and actually we zoom directly into implementations, like what the key message from COP27 is about: implementations, implementations, and implementations. But we go beyond that, we're actually doing monitoring as well. So low carbon program implementations, throughout the years, we have implemented more than 60 programs completed, and more than 200 are still ongoing. We are the first. In order for you to, when we talk about low carbon, we're not talking about green city. So that in order for you to measure your performance, you need to measure to manage. So that we actually the first in the region that use GPC to measure our carbon performance. So that based on the greenhouse gas inventory 2019, the ambitious intensity of GDP shows a significant decrease of 19.7% using 2010 as a base year. So that for our program implementations is actually, it's not IRDA. We are not doing things alone, but with all this is actually with a very close collaborations with multi-level of stakeholders from government. Like for example, we work very closely with the state and local authorities, and also companies. Even we work very closely with the school community and local community, so that our program, that what we have, right, is actually cover quite a wide range, so that like SDG, leave no one behind. For implementations, we actually work with various of stakeholders. For example, for building and township, we have this KSP Iskandar and building energy monitoring and reporting system. We even have a soft incentive, Green Accord Initiative Award, that actually we give recognitions to the green player in Iskandar Malaysia. So that it's not that government agency is doing everything by ourselves, but we involve everyone. In terms of environmental educations, like we also learned this from Japan, so that we have this Iskandar Malaysia Eco Life Challenge. Just to share a bit, this year is our 10 years of program anniversary. That for this program, we work closely with University Technology Malaysia, Johor Education's Department, supported by our strategic partner Iskandar Puteri City Council, SWM Environment, and also Apparent. So for this, we have covered more than 100,000 students in Iskandar Malaysia that learned about electricity saving, water saving, and recycling. Other than that, we also have program when we talk about adaptations, right? We have this partnership for interdisciplinary studies for shoreline ecosystem. And also we have a real life example. If you visit Johor Bahru, please drop by to in front of City Square. You can see that Segep River Revitalizations project that actually we have put a lot of effort, work closely with MPJB, that actually we managed to improve the air quality for Sungai Segep. International collaborations, like just now I mentioned, there are a lot of things that we're not doing alone, that we're working with the local stakeholder. Now I would like to highlight to you the international collaborations that we have with the international agencies. Like for example, we learned a lot from GCOM since year 2017, since we are the member. So that from there are a lot of capacity buildings, and also new knowledge that we pick up. That's how that we realize that Iskandar Malaysia, there are areas that we need to improve, especially on adaptations. That's how that transpired us that actually prepare a climate actions plan that comprehensive, covering both mitigations and adaptations. I just want to, as you can see in the slide, we have collaborations, and we are actually one of the showcase city under green technology applications for low carbon cities. We work with Eclair, developing plastic waste-free cities in Iskandar, Malaysia, city-to-city collaborations with City of Kitakyushu. Bear with me, I will share with you more in the next slide. Realizing industrial symbiosis in Iskandar, Malaysia. We also work with City of Toyama on urban development project, UK Foreign Commonwealth Office Prosperity Fund, smart integrated mobility management for Iskandar, Malaysia capacity building on data analytics, and city-to-city collaborations with West Midland Combined Authority Birmingham on transport and mobility, and next US Trade Development Agency implementations plan for the Iskandar, Malaysia Urban Observatory. So that for this industrial symbiosis is a collaboration. Again, we learned a lot because that blueprint that started we learned a lot from the Japanese city, so that we actually maintain the collaborations until now, even in terms of implementations. So that for this, Iskandar Malaysia plan to move towards circular economy through industrial symbiosis. The project aims to transform existing industrial zone into eco-industrial park, and this can be achieved through clean and low carbon technology. So you can see the comparison from the linear system transitions to circular economy and some example of industrial symbiosis that actually presented in this slide. So when people ask why industrial symbiosis, as you can see, as highlighted in the slide, there are a lot of benefit. It encourages collaborations among industry players to recycle, exchange their waste or byproduct, achieving higher resource efficiency, waste minimizations, and reduce negative impacts towards the environment. That is everyone, even though you are actually industry, you can play your role in terms of carbon reducing your greenhouse gas emissions. So that there are benefit as stated, like for example, reducing raw material and waste disposal costs, earn new revenue from residues and byproduct, divert waste for landfill. This is very important. If we, like what Baizura mentions, if let's say you're buying, like for example, 3 clothes today and out where it will be ended if we do not really managing it well. Especially, I think Christmas is coming, Chinese New Year is coming, everyone is busy buying, but you must have second thoughts that where the waste will end up to. So that other than that is like reduce carbon emissions and open up new business opportunities such as waste to energy. So that once again, I would like to highlight a bit like for Iskandar Malaysia, we actually, since participations in GCOM, we are actively in this CDP reporting. And in 2019, 2020, and this year, Iskandar Malaysia received a Score Air Leadership, the highest band score in CDP cities reporting. We are proud to share that Iskandar Malaysia has been named Climate Actions Leader on CDP Air List for the 3rd time. Iskandar Malaysia is one of the 123 cities across the globe that taking bold leadership on environmental actions and transparency. Despite the pressure of challenging global economic situations, Iskandar Malaysia has received a high confidence scoring in the WWF One Planet City Challenge. This is something that we would like to share with other cities as well, because when we having policy in place, we are doing monitoring, we must always check and balance where are we now, how should we improve. That's how that we actually learn a lot from this CDP reporting. So that moving forward, okay, we just want to bring you just now a lot of sharing on international, so that come back to Malaysia. Actually, Malaysia aims to becoming a net zero greenhouse gas emissions nations as early as 2050. Then Malaysia actually made a bold move when Malaysia intend to reduce its economic-wide carbon intensity against GDPs by 45% in 2030 compared to 2005 level. You can see the things that federal government government under the like, for example, CASA and GETSA is driving, for example, net zero greenhouse gas emissions as early as 2015. They are developing a long-term emissions development strategy, domestic emissions trading scheme, and also to mention like what Eddie mentioned just now is on one of it is a voluntary carbon mechanism, minimum 50 to retain minimum 50% of forest cover, new energy, and also I just want to highlight a bit more participations of the private sector in realizing the zero greenhouse gas target as part of company sustainable operations agenda. I think ESG is something like everyone is talking about that they seriously have to look into, like how the operations of the company be able to reduce carbon. And for all this in place, right, just to answer to Baisura's question just now, where are we now? But I can see that there are very positive moves like compared to 10 years back, that lots of things is driven by government agency. Now is everyone is playing their role in order to for us to achieve net zero target. So that next thing that we would like to share is like is actually very important for us as an economic region to have a document that we could refer to. So that once again, I would like to share with you Iskandar Malaysia Low Carbon Society Blueprint for Iskandar Malaysia 2030 Climate Actions Plan. Is a roadmap for Iskandar Malaysia that inclusive for both mitigations and adaptations target. And this time, our goal is to reducing the intensity of greenhouse gas emissions by up to 70% by 2030 compared to 2010 level. And on the adaptations part, we would like to develop cities and society that are resilient towards climate change, so that the area that we are looking at, like for flood, sea level rise, coastal erosions, and also on the community. Our commitment, so that for Iskandar Malaysia, we will continue our commitment and effort to reduce our emissions intensity focus of 5 areas of greenhouse gas reductions. Energy, we will be looking at more on renewable energy, transportations like biofuel or other alternative, waste like circular economy and other solid waste like 3R and others, water management, and sustainable management and conservations of forest land and biomass stock. And also we would like to continue our effort in climate adaptations to develop a cities and society that are resilient towards climate change, serve as a hub on low carbon hub that offers a platform for green program implementations and collaborations, and continue to build climate awareness and provide resources to all stakeholder, government agency, businesses, community to work concert with the policies measure to mitigate climate change. And lastly, continue to contribute to international effort to strengthen collaborations and actions on climate change. Okay, next I bring you to Egypt. COP27, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt 2022. This time the slogan is Together for Implementations. Okay, just want to share with you that actually we are very pleased that we actually get the party of over 4+ pass from CASA for us to join COP this year. So that for this one, our IRDA delegations to COP27 led by our Chief Executive Yang Berhormat Dr. Dr. Badru, together with my lead of Resilient Environment, Puan Kamisa, also Mr. Mamdo and myself from Resilient Environment also joining the trip to COP this time. So that we have met Sabah representative is too bad that Adrian cannot join us this time. Adrian Lasimbang, I think everyone know him, that attend COP27 with important missions to represent the indigenous group in COP27. I hope that next time Adrian can share with us more on the story. And also we met Asif from GCOM. IRDA also involved in the panelist discussions in the Japan Pavilion under the topic City-to-City Carbon Neutral Collaboration, celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Look East policy. So you can see that our relationship with Japan started with 10 years ago when they helped us to do the blueprint, so that we actually in the sessions, we actually share how actually we learn from the blueprint until implementations and monitoring, and how now that we can actually become a guide a reference point for other cities that want to go green. And also, I'm also very fortunate with the opportunity given that be able to participate in the discussions on how local case studies accelerate national and global actions from youth perspective. For this, just want to highlight a bit on the COP27 findings that this is the first time that we can see that youth and future generations both is actually in the blue zone, and also we can see a lot of kids and youth involved in the discussions. So that next I would like to share with you that Ministry of Environment and Water CASA together with MGTC setting up a Malaysia Pavilion to showcase local solutions to tackle climate change. The Malaysia Pavilion showcasing Malaysia effort in addressing climate change, covering wide range of like for example panel discussions, dialogue and exhibitions. The topic covered including sustainable finance involving representatives from Bank Negara Bursa Malaysia, financial institutions Malaysia, several Malaysia youth. Again, I would like to highlight on the youth and NGO like Global Environment Center and UNICEF. So Iskandar Malaysia and Green Technology Applications for Development of Low Carbon Cities, GTA LCC Seda Malaysia, joining organize a side event entitled Iskandar Malaysia Empowering Sustainability with Partners. So that for us, that what we have today is because of all the help that we actually get from our very supportive partners and stakeholders, so that the side events actually highlight the climate and sustainability initiative and achievement by Iskandar Malaysia that we deliver together with our partners, our panels from, like, for example, of course, we have our Chief Executive, Dr. Badru, and also we have research perspective, Mr. Chow from University Technology Malaysia, Nasha from Climate and Environmental Specialists that share on the, from UNICEF Malaysia that share a lot on the youth and children's perspective in climate actions, and Cik Norizal from Gata Sisi Seda Malaysia, and also Junichi from IJS, and also we have a video recording from Miss Tanam, chairwoman from Gender Equality Social Inclusion Consultative Group, and this is actually moderated by Kamisa, lead of Resilient Environment. So some photos that I want to share with you with all the speakers and moderators. Certain photo that we actually want to share with you is the people behind the scene, the secretariats that run the site events. So that some of the photos again during the event, you can see that actually is quite a very good participations from local and international participants. And actually we get a very good comment from our friends from Cameroon, Africa, that we would like to know the secret from Iskandar Malaysia on our success story. So this is a very important milestone for us. Once again, then actually we launched our Iskandar Malaysia Climate Actions Plan during the site event. That the one that actually present is actually our Chief Executive, Datuk Dr. Badru, together with lead of Resilient Environment, Puan Kamisa, witness, and also our partners from Seda Malaysia and UNICEF. This is actually witnessed by our colleague from Ministry of Environment and Water in Farid. And also when we talk about climate actions, there is another part that we actually are quite new. We're also learning is on the climate adaptations. So for this, we actually do an announcement of new collaborations on Iskandar Malaysia Coastal Resilience and Climate Adaptation Center. So that for this is actually a close collaborations with between IRDA, UTM, and also Delta RES. So for this, right, there are lots of things that we hope to learn more and to share more with every one of you. Like what Boyd mentions, that going to COP will be a bit costly, so that we'll bring all these things to our upcoming event, Iskandar Malaysia Sustainability Summit, that will be held in happen in Johor Bahru from 14 to 16 March. So that there is a QR code. Kindly join us as a participants and speakers or even sponsor. So from this, before I end my presentation, it is truly honor for me to involve in these sessions to learn from everyone. As IRDA, we will continue at our role as enabler and supporter of Malaysia's commitment to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And thank you again for your interest and support on an ongoing commitment to Iskandar Malaysia. With that, I end my presentations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chu. That's really great. There's a huge amount of information that you shared. Of course, some of that I know quite well, but there are some really a lot of new things as well that's come up, which is great. And the fact that from the climate actions in terms of mitigation, now we are moving forward, we as in Iskandar Malaysia, obviously, now moving into adaptation. So you guys are well ahead on that and working closely with all the major authorities, especially federal government on this one. So I'm very proud of that and what's happening there. So I'm very happy on that. I think because it's been such a good session so far, and we're very happy with what it's turning out to be. If it's okay, can we go on a little bit longer? Maybe for another 20 minutes, because I can see
Sure.
there's a number of very good questions on the chat box on this one. And okay, let's start the Q&A. I think first one may be more what you can see on the screen, which is relating to waste to energy. Now, Ruth is saying that it's a false green solution, mainly because waste to energy is another term for incinerator. I mean, if it's an opinion, obviously, and we're not beholden you to the answers and how to address this one. But I think for discussion purposes, we can discuss here. If anyone also wants to say something relating to this conversation, please do raise your hands, and then we will share that. You can do your sharing. But maybe I will ask Chu first, relating to this idea of incinerator. I have my own opinion, but of course, you being the panelists, I'd like your opinion on that, and possibly Bazura as well can come in a little bit later. Okay, Chu, what do you think of this term that Ruth mentioned, that it's more or less a waste, really, because it's not a solution. It's the same as incinerator. What do you think?
I think from my perspective, it's actually a bit different. Like, for example, like circular economy and even incinerator. Like, for example, if let's say you're not going to this, you're going to like linear economy and so on, you will keep on using new resources. So that from now, I think it's actually a better, you're giving the West a better life, that actually the second life, that it actually become the input for other industry. So from my point of view, that this is actually, when we talking about all these things, right, you like as simple as you actually using aluminum tin. We actually like soft drinks, Coca-Cola and things like that. Instead of you like using the resources from underground and also to use it to produce a new aluminum tin, rather than from actually recycling and also using the aluminum from the old product, actually help us to cut down the needs of opening new resources. So that this is actually, for me, is actually towards low carbon. You need to really look at circular economy. I think that is my perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chu. Bazura, would you like to comment?
Yeah. Very interesting. Very something related so closely to me. So yes and no, Ruth, in this sense, because yes, waste to energy to some extent is incinerating of the items and to capture the energy and everything. But there is also, when you talk about dioxin and everything, because there is different level of technology. So when we do the incineration or waste to energy technology that we want to implement, we must first make sure that the technology that we choose is the one that do the complete burning. So this one, then there is no problem. I can't say 100% sure of this, but up to this, the current technology, it is tested that the dioxin level is safe. But another thing that you have to take care when we want to implement this waste to energy or the incineration, whatever people want to to call it is that we have to make sure that the separation of the waste is properly done first, because the problem it happen is that when something like battery that involved in the waste that is not properly separated, then this is what will become the leak of heavy metal and everything. So it's not the first options to incinerate. There are a lot of steps that we can take before we go towards be it incineration or waste to energy technology if we want to adopt it. So that's what my thought is.
Okay, thank you. My opinion is that this is something that I've seen in Japan and have suggested it to Iskandar Malaysia, i.e. the idea of this circular, or not circular, actually industrial symbiosis. In Japan, it's very big and it's working really well. So it's very much, I guess you call it incinerator, but it's also waste to energy in the sense of how you make use of the waste for something positive. And it can work. It's not necessarily bad, providing you know how, if you like, you know how to do it. The one I had proposed for Iskandar Malaysia is where, let's say 10 companies and their one company's byproducts or waste can be used by another company as a main resource. So if you can see that logic, there is no waste in the end. There will be some waste, but most of it will be reused and reapplied into a different context, in the sense of if you have waste materials, that waste material could be very useful for another company that's dealing with, let's say, toilet paper. So toilet paper can be used for something else. And I've seen this in Japan. I think, if possible, IRDA, Bazura and others, we could organize a trip to Japan and see what is happening there, because looking at it is quite an amazing thing. I'll give you the example of the toilet paper. There's a lot of magazines, obviously, that is around. And what they do is that they remove the metal from the magazine, in terms, because they hold the papers together, and that magazine is then churned up and it becomes a huge 2-story piece of toilet roll, and then they break it up into normal toilet rolls in the end. So I mean, it's not so much incinerator, but the idea that this can be reused for something else is a great idea. Now, the one that I saw in Okayama, I think, is an incinerator, very big, and it's very useful. And because it produced a lot of byproducts that are positively used. For example, like it became bricks for pavements or for road surfaces, for example. And this kind of thing are very important, because we have to bear in mind, of course, that not if you have big incinerators, which could cost a lot of money. However, it could be that you don't have enough materials or raw materials to feed the incinerator. So that becomes an issue then. So these are the things that can be considered. But the other point I think people will see is incinerator is to do with dirty materials and dirty landscape. And having seen Japan's incinerators, they are really different. They are very clean. It's more like a hospital environment, if you like, and no smell, which is quite amazing. And on this one in particular that I visited, on top is, I think it's like a revolving restaurant in the chimney level. So it's quite amazing to see that. And this is just my opinion, but I think it's another way that we can reuse our products in a positive way.
Maybe I can chime in a bit as well.
Yes, please.
It's a wonderful question put forth by Ruth, right? But maybe this is a good opportunity to also rethink if it's the best moving forward plan, right? I mean, traditionally, waste to energy was considered as a good thing. Then eventually everyone understood it's not really a good thing. And instead, we should start looking at, perhaps recycling or even composting, right? And I think the understanding of the downside to waste to energy is, one, it gives out a lot of toxic emissions. And if I'm not mistaken, I also recall reading that, waste to energy incinerators can emit more CO2 than even a coal-fired plant, right? So then the question comes up, is one good that we're trying to do, is it going to end up becoming a deterrent, a bigger deterrent compared to what we already have, right? So maybe it's a good time to ask that question to see if this is the best way forward, or if there is other ways forward that we might want to reconsider.
Thank you. Yes, it is, and it can be very expensive. So I mean, it could also be socially unacceptable to certain situations. So it's a good point. I think it's something that we could raise, at least in our new government and a new agency or ministry that's coming up, how to handle this, because this is being talked about again. So it's we could put it on together. By the way, everyone, we are going to record all this and obviously take the points together. And at some point, we're going to share it to the authorities, to the government, of how this can be looked at more strongly and more rigorously by them, because they need to consider it. Okay, now question 2 that I thought is really good, and I think we should go back to that. Hun Teo was asking about this, relating to what are we doing about deforestation? And it's something, of course, that's very pertinent to everyone. It's good to see the new president of Brazil attending the indigenous event at COP27, and how he is trying to grapple with that, because the Amazon is being destroyed at a very alarming rate before him. Hopefully there is a kind of stop or a limitation on that now, which is going to be good. But for the case of, I think Hun Teo is talking about Kalimantan, obviously, and Borneo, deforestation is happening. So how do we address that? Any opinions from everyone? Possibly, Eddie, do you have any comments on that from that point of view? And then the others can have an opinion too. Thank you.
I agree with what Baizura said earlier, and I think sustainability must heavily be about the people, right? So before we get into the big question of how to stop deforestation, perhaps that awareness must come down to the person, that individual, whereby you need to understand what does using paper do, in terms of using it in your home, in your office. What does the impact of using recycled products do? And, what does the difference of buying wood products do in terms of your contribution towards reducing deforestation. So I think it must begin at the individual level before we move to a higher conversation, because the public must be aware on what is the impact that is their day-to-day is actually costing, which accumulates and becomes part of the bigger problem as well, right? So on my view, I would definitely say sustainability must be about the people. The people themselves must understand what is the impact that is costing, and then we move the conversation further towards corporations. Yeah.
Okay, Baizura, any comments?
Well, when we talk about this forestation, actually, because there are like two reasons why. I always like want to see like why does it happen. Like, one is that is it because you need the space to open a new city, or the other one is because you're just needing the resources, to make it money for you. Because we see this also happens in few other states in Semenanjung. So if it's about to open the city, to have more space for people to live, like haven't we had enough houses in the country that to accommodate everyone? Or like, if it's decentralizing, then we need to see what's the reason before we can stop this. And it's not something that I can say, okay, let's stop the illegal, because we cannot run away from deforestation, but it had been happening before also, when they say the traditional way of it, to do it in circular, you cut and you replant and cut and replant. There is a way to make sure that it doesn't kill our environment at this rate. So that's what my thought is.
Okay. Chu, you have any comments? Chu is from Sarawak as well. So maybe
I'm from Kuching. I work in IRDA for the past 10 years. Okay, for this one, right, what I can see is like deforestation, like in terms of development, of course, I think everywhere you're having the same problem, but instead of opening new area, I think you can start looking at like brownfield development. You can see that actually nowadays, if you go and observe the old cities, right, there are a lot of like two-story shop house is no longer in use because there are too many like supermarkets and so on, that so that maybe there is another way of really giving a second life to all these like brownfield development that is actually not in use. Then you can actually demolish it and actually put it up to become a building with a higher density and more meaningful, instead of you keep on opening into the urban fringe and out there is nothing much that you can do to the existing unused shop house and things like that. I think that is something that for urban planning, I think Boyd can have a better say on this. From urban planning perspective, you can really have to think, be creative. It's no longer greenfield development, but instead you have really look at brownfield or infield development. I think that is something from my view. Thank you.
Thank you both. From my point of view, this from a planner's point of view, this is an interesting one that it's not done in Malaysia yet, I think, but it's when I was working in the UK, one of the things that we proposed, and it was adopted by the district, is what's called safeguarded land. Now, safeguarded land mean two things. One is safeguarding the land. This is obviously for development in the future, i.e. we're talking about you only use this land once your existing land within a built envelope is used and completed. So there's no more land in an existing framework, or if you like, the urban growth boundary of a city. When that's finished, and you're right in saying it's not just the land itself, but the brown land or gray land, the buildings that can be refurbished. These are being done in America and other places where warehouses are being reused, and in London, things like that. But it's only after you finish using that land, then you go to the safeguarded land, which is on the fringes of an existing city or a town. This is important because the safeguarded land is looked at very carefully. It's not a pristine piece of land. It could be a land that can be gazetted for that purpose. So within a 20-year plan of a land use plan, you gazette this land, which means you keep all your existing greenfield, class 1 forest reserves, you don't touch any of those. And this is what's happening in the UK. In Malaysia, of course, it's quite different, and they don't practice that at all, because we look at things differently. The politics come into it, and then things change. In the UK, it doesn't happen like that. Everyone has to follow a system, and it works really well on that basis. So, I mean, we are a little bit going off tangent on the topic, but it's important to bear in mind that when we do this thing, you have to really stick with whatever you can have. So in the case of deforestation, we need to stop that altogether if we can. It's not going to be possible in our lifetime, because the way things happen, the way governments work, the other side work, if you like, or different parts of the world, it's still happening, whatever it is. And the main thing, I think, is like Eddie was saying, let's go back to a little bit of soul searching, in the sense of how we address that ourselves, do a campaign, if you like, and promote the idea even more. So over time, I'm sure it will have an impact eventually through policies, through the programs, and how we address land use in the long term. So these are some of the things that I can see that could be happening in our country, and also in Borneo, because Indonesia is prospering, and it wants to prosper even more. But of course, we have to be aware that that's a different country. They have their own way of doing things. Nevertheless, maybe through this forum, we can get together and at least raise the issue, have a conversation. And this is available in YouTube eventually, by the way. So something will be coming out. Some people will see that and possibly have a debate and rethink what they have in mind. So this is how we should see things in that perspective. Ken, any comment? Ken and Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Boyd. I'm just mindful of our time as well, but just focusing on Borneo, I'm very, very pleased to see development here. As I was sharing earlier about the 20 billion amount available to Indonesia just on East Kalimantan. And prior to all these, there were funds from Norway. I think it's about 50 to 100 million before that. And I really like to have our second speaker as well to comment on this, because I assume this is an area she knows, because this forum then topic has a direct impact on our Borneo Island. I would love to have a comment by, let me mention, Ms. Budiati on this one, or anybody who knows about this availability of fund eventually and what's being done in Kalimantan especially. Is she here, Ms. Budiati here?
I think she's left, Ken, because she had to go
right.
to hospital. Her dad is
okay. I didn't realize that. Sorry, but otherwise, if no one is able to comment, but it is very a direct impact on this forum that this is happening already. And you see here, Indonesia has been praised for leading in the deforestation initiative. So we don't really kind of see that is happening. Most of the time we see on the news is about all the devastation, and it's true, but it's good to see COP27 is directly impacting on Borneo. You have any comment on that, Boyd, yourself?
No, I think I've mentioned it earlier in terms of we should be aware, because it's like a heads up, because this thing is likely to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. i.e. the funding is going to be available, especially for deforestation, but focusing on renewable energy as they move away from fossil fuel altogether. And that's the plan of the government in Jakarta. So the way I see it is, and Asi mentioned this to me before, i.e. we should be aware of this and potentially get ready on this eventuality, because it's something that the money is pledged, is going to be available, and it's part and parcel of the development of Nusantara, as well as that part of the world, and generally, I guess, on the removal of the coal power plants. So this is something very tangible, and it could be potentially one of the big development areas in a positive way, by the way, because we then need to look at how we address that in terms of climate actions and no more fossil fuel productions. We must move beyond that, and the way their president is looking at this, it's a very, very positive, bold move for Indonesia, because they want to develop very, very big from a global point of view. So it's a great clinch, by the way, of a deal with the world. And I think it's a shame that Malaysia doesn't have that clout, because they are, in a sense, they are bogged down in different things in the past 3-4 years. And if we were focusing on that, it would have been something really big to look at, and that would be a very strong point to go ahead with. So it would be good to have Asi in this platform again, but nevertheless, it's something that we can take possibly to the next forum, discuss even more on a sit-in event, that kind of situation. So for now, I think we can invite Asi next time to comment on that. Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Cousin Boyd, I'd like to add something about this forum. I think the environment, COP27 and circular economy, there's so much to learn, and definitely it's important for our planet's survival and to make a better world tomorrow. And I would like to congratulate you, Cousin Boyd and Raymond, for having a good session. Asi, Eddie, Baizura, and Ms. Chu. All these experts has the facts and the figures. I was blown away to hear all kinds of new and important information that I think everyone should know. And I think in the future, we should have more forums such as this. I think in the future, Cousin Boyd, we need to organize more forum that is related to environment, Mother Earth, how to save our planet for a better tomorrow. And that's it from me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cousin Richard. Yes, and thank you, Ken. Co-moderator, do you have any final comments? I'm planning to wrap it up at 5:15 if it's okay, because I think we've gone on time anyway.
Yeah, actually, I learned a lot, and from all the panelists that were sharing, it helps. I come to one conclusion is that it's time to rethink the way we do things. Rethink, especially when it comes to businesses, to rethink how the way we make profit, and yet at the same time to ensure there's sustainability. Because when I was in my studying for my studies last time in business, they said the sole criteria of a business is profit. So now I think it has moved because we have to put importance in considering our environment. And thank you for all the panelists today. You have given me something to think about. Even in Labuan, I can say. I remember back in 2012 to 2014 was the oil and gas boom time. So what happened is a big section of the mangrove of Labuan was actually reclaimed for industrial warehouse. And it's quite sad. The other thing I observed also is that, when doing the construction of Borneo Highway, there are so many problems arising from that, especially every time there's a heavy downpour, guaranteed there's flood. And you see that in the Facebook, and people blaming government, blaming, I don't know, whatever. But you can see it's very sad. And then when I see trees being cut down and hills being cut, it makes me think, is it all worth it on the long term? So thank you. That's my input for what Boyd.
Okay, I'll just have my kind of summary before I ask Ken to wrap up altogether. Thank you so much for all the comments in the chat box and the queries. We take, unfortunately, we ran out of time, but I think we have another opportunity to, we should go to the next discussion level, if you like, another forum, another time, pretty soon. I think early next year, maybe we can do something like that. One of the positive things that, to me, that come out of this is the discussions that we've had. The comments are pretty strong. I totally value that, and it needs to come to a point where it's the crunch, and we can't hide behind anything now, because we have to look after this planet. There's a lot of things and a lot of issues. I take the point of Huntio about the issues in Iskandar, Malaysia. There are also issues in Amazon, which is probably even bigger, and the loss of mangroves. Definitely, it happened, and it led to a very, very sad account during the tsunami in Aceh, for example. So these are the things that globally, there's a lot of issues. It's not just us, but everywhere. But the main thing, I think, is how we more or less go back to the drawing board almost and plan something else or discuss it and get to a point where we can actually pin down our government, because we can't possibly affect others, but pin down our government on what we should be doing. Of course, you need a stable government, you need a strong, responsive, and clear people who want to listen to us, because many of us here, I think, are quite provocative, and that's how it should be. We all have a stake in this, because it's not just us. We think about our children and beyond that. So we have to make sure that we look after it for everyone else that comes after us. So we need to be able to do this. If there impact that we can't stop, mainly because we just don't have that authority, if you like, we need to record it. We need to say in an official capacity to document it. This is not just protesting, by the way, guys, protesting on the street or whatever. We need to document that, put in writing, because years later in the future, somebody somewhere is going to look at those documents and say, oh, this was mentioned 20 years ago, that kind of thing. So we need to record that. And although we cannot do anything, but we protest through what we say and what we write. That is really important to me in getting things done for for our country and for the planet. So we have a stake in all of this, and how we're going to do that is, I think, like, it's a blasé thing, but it's entirely up to us how to get things done. For me, thank you so much. It's such an opportunity to discuss with you guys. And I can see that all of you are passionate about this. You have a lot of things to share. By all means, write to us, write to the team and to me. Let me know your thoughts, and then we can list them out together. By the way, eventually, there's two things that will happen. One is, of course, this event is going to YouTube when we have done it properly as a, when we put it online. Two, we are hoping that it will come as one of the press reports later on. And because some of these have been requesting that we should put something on the newspaper. Normally it's Daily Express in Sabah, but it could also be other newspapers. So some of the things that we discussed would be very important. And going back to the COP27 update, I think it's really great to see some very positive things happening there, and something that we need to follow up. So very much positive. Thank you so much to everyone, and of course to my co-moderator for being such a great host on this event. Okay, Ken, back to you as a wrap up. Thank you very much.
Okay, I make it very short. Thank you very much, Boyd, for leading this forum this time, for Richard for helping all the marketing and all the administration, for Raymond, of course, for co-hosting, and most importantly, all the speakers, presenters, amazing, wonderful information. And we're all not really specialists in this, and it's so important for us to be able to hear from the practitioners and all the attendees. Now, talking about attendees, you make the higher registration on Eventbrite, but of course, they will then get an email on the update of this. And most importantly, what they have done in the past and always done is that this will be restreamed in the Facebook page. Right at this moment, it's actually streamed in the group, Borneo Forum group, which is about 2,000 members seeing this on my wall. And then eventually we'll restream this on Facebook. What happened in the past is immediately we have 700 views, and then eventually it doubled in the second week, and then even triple in the third week. So this will be actually seen wider, not just a small number now. So I'm gonna maximize the power of the social media after this. And as Boyd said, we are going to upload this on YouTube and share it again. So thank you very much indeed. We are still planning for the next Borneo Forum, whether it's going to be December or January, and most likely we are going to have a bit of coverage on the post elections and the new prime minister. Possibly we're working on that, because we are non-political, but we touch on political topics without being political. So that's we are working on for the next Borneo Forum. Just do come and join us again for our next forum. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Just share your camera. Thank you very much, everyone. Just unmute yourself. Unmute yourself and say thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Very good.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you again. Bye-bye.